Of course, let's start by telling you that the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has suspended its planned nationwide protest against the 50% hike in telecom tariff approved by the federal government. This decision comes after a meeting between the NLC and government representatives, where it was agreed that a review panel will be set up to examine the tariff structure. The NLC had initially rejected the tariff hike, demanding a reduction to 5%. And threatening a nationwide protest if their demands weren't met. However, following the meeting, the NLC agreed to hold the protest pending the outcome of the review panel's findings. The review panel, comprising 5 representatives from both the NLC and the government, is expected to submit its findings within 2 weeks. The panel's recommendation will determine the next course of action, including potential protests, boycotts, or service withdrawals. The telecommunication regulator, that's the Nigeria Communications Commission, had defended the tariff hike, citing rising operational costs driven by inflation, foreign exchange fluctuations, and higher energy expenses. However, the NLC argued that the hike would impose an extra burden on Nigerian customers who are already struggling to survive under the current economic hardship. Well, joining me on the program this evening to discuss this is Sam Yohanna, as a former organizing secretary of the All Progressives Congress, joining from Kaduna State, and also Okonu Abdullahi, the general secretary of the Private Communications and Private Telecommunications and Communications Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. I also have on the panel this evening Dr. Niyi Akinsiju, as the chairman of the Independent Media and Policy Initiative, who is joining virtually from Abuja. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. I understand that for now, it's just Dr. Akinsiju and Sam Yohanna. Gentlemen, thank you once again for joining the program. Let me start by asking... Thank you for having us. Great. Let me get your opinion on the hike, in tariff. I'm talking to you, Dr. Akinsiju, on this. Even though this telcos have cited, huge astronomical operational cost. Looking at the hike itself, what do you make of it, given the current economic reality for Nigerians?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. And I must confess, this is very appropriate. This issue is very appropriate at this time, especially as we evolve into new economic sphere and models. Initially, my thought was, is there any need for this kind of debate? Because when you contextualize the issue of a tariff hike in the environment of free markets or open markets, where decisions are made by private entrepreneurs and enterprise on what should consider the cost benefit ratio of their production or productivity, as it were. What are the interventions that are essential or that are necessary for them to determine perhaps the most important element in economic transaction, which is price. All over the world and in basic economy, we understand the fact that the pricing of a product is important to the survival and sustainability of the company behind that product. So to a large extent, when you are operating in an environment of free market, the decision to increase your price is usually predicated on your cost input into the production of that product, and in this case, of course, into the production or into the provision of services provided by telecommunication companies. So to a large extent, I believe that these decisions are primarily in the purview of the operators, the service providers. And in the case of Nigeria, I am yet to be told, and I need to, because the practicality of this engagement is to talk to us, is to talk to ourselves, to understand the environment we are operating in, and to also know that the way the Labour Congress is trying to fashion the issue is to look at it in the milieu of the body or the economic body, as it were. But for the entrepreneur, it is not about economic body. We agree that there's a high cost of living issue or crisis within the economic space. But again, you have entrepreneurs who are engaged in providing services, telecommunication services, that are also investors, and they are also providers of enablers of job opportunities, etc., that would also, in most cases, want to create an equilibrium between the cost of production and, of course, revenue earned by providing that service. So for me, it is the primary issue should be cost input vis-a-vis probability of
so are you saying, in one breath, are you saying that the tariff review, upward review, is a welcome development?
It is not about being welcome. It is the practical development. It is the step that will have to be taken, given especially the background, to the telecom industry. A quick reference. I am just a Nigerian, but I am a major advocate of free market, because I've known what the other side of the economic paradigm. Sorry.
All right. It appears, of course, maybe we would, of course, give you some time to. Okay, we have the power back. Yeah. You might just want to wrap up.
I'm saying that I am an advocate of free markets, open economy, and that to a large extent, when this is operational, the important thing is for producers or providers of services, to look at what they are imputing into the process of provision, to the process of providing that services.
All right.
Of course, what they will earn. The important thing is that you must have an equilibrium where earnings and costs are at par. And in this case, you are not even talking of profit. So to a large extent, I do not expect that a private operator would have to subsidize provision of telecom service to Nigerian consumers. I am not too sure that is equitable, and I'm not too sure that is fair. It is important that we give the privilege of appreciating, and of course the time.
Dr. Akinsiju, if you can hear me, we seem to have lost a bit of connectivity with you, but let me bring in Sam into this and get your reaction. What do you make of this increment in telecommunication tariff?
Thank you for having me, Mr. Dako. If we all can remember, the telecom industry was liberalized, I think, in the early 90s, where private players came in, and that had brought in a lot of competition to the telecom industry, and we've made tremendous improvement. I am speaking tonight as someone who is a major player, and having worked in the defunct Nigerian Telecommunication Limited, NITEL, I think I have a vast experience and knowledge of what is happening in the telecom industry now. This review in tariff is long overdue as a result of high cost of operational costs and other issues that had to do with quality of service. If you notice, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, the quality of service, either data or voice calls, has actually dropped. And if this review hasn't come, I tell you, Mr. Dako, one day we'll wake up, we'll find out that the telecom industry will go under, just like what we're experiencing with the power sector at the moment. As I speak to you right now, we haven't had light in Kaduna since yesterday in the morning up to this very moment. I am on alternative power backup right now. And you see, those are issues that has to do with quality of service. Now, the labor-related issues between Kaduna Electric and the management is now affecting the consumers, and the consumers are now bearing the brunt. So we wouldn't want this to happen in the telecom industry. And initially, the telecom operators requested for 100% increment, while the government said, no, you can't get 100. We can look at 30, 40, 50. Eventually, they settled at 50%. Well, you see, the telecom industry is capital-intensive industry. I know the challenges we went through those days when we were in NITEL, where we couldn't compete with the private telephone operators, and that affected the company, and today the company is now moribund. So it's good that this review is done, though times are hard. Nigerians are going through excruciating pains, but nevertheless, is it better for us not to have the private telecommunication operators operating, and we go back to the days of we queuing up to make telephone calls, or we can handle the review in tariff and see how we get over it over time. And one good thing with this review is that the telecom operators will not have any reason to give customers that part of the reason why drop calls are there, and unsolicited text messages, and you send text message, they don't get over to the other party and you're being charged for it. I think there will be a genuine reason now why customers should hold them responsible. And I think the regulatory body, that the Nigerian Communications Commission, will be on the watch out to see if the telecom operators will improve their quality of service.
Sam, you said quite a number of things, and given the fact that, according to you, you said you also have some level of knowledge being a part of the telecom sector before.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
My background as an electrical engineer and electronic telecom specialist.
I mean, even though we know that the ease of doing business in terms of the cost, of service, maintenance, and all of that is pretty high. Many of these telcos buy equipment in dollars, and they have to earn in naira because of the services they provide in Nigeria, and we know the value of the naira to the dollar and all of that. But is 50% hike, is it pretty fair? Because we are looking at a scenario where somebody who pays a certain amount for data might be getting half that value now. And we know what the economy says. And we also know that many of these telcos too pretty much make money, not just from these basic services, but there are other services that, gives them good money that can still enable them stay afloat. So I would like you to speak on this. Is that percentage fair?
Like I said earlier, the telecom industry is capital intensive. As I speak to you now, if you drop $1 million in a particular telecom company, I wouldn't want to mention names here, I tell you, it's just like a drop in the ocean. 99% of all the equipment used in the telecom industries are imported. They are not manufactured here. And let me tell you something. The cost of energy is part of the thing that is really, really biting hard on the telecom operators. Almost all their base stations all over the country are being powered by alternative backup energy, either diesel power generators or solar power system. And you see, insecurity too is another challenge that they are having. I know a couple of weeks ago, some telecom operators were shot dead when they were maintaining a base station around Sokoto, Zamfara axis. And every base station you see in this country, the telecom operator have provided 1 or 2 security guards to man those things. All this costs money. So honestly, like I said earlier, Nigerians, I know they're going through excruciating pains. But we should please bear with the telecom operators. At least now we've had tremendous improvement in the telecom industry. That has contributed to our internet penetration in this country. We wouldn't want to go back to the dark ages where you have to go and queue up to be making telephone distance. Nigeria should please bear with the telecom operators. I know with time, these prices will come down. When we started this business of telephones in Nigeria and mobile phones, me and you know very well that it used to be per minute billing. If you put a call across, even if it is 1 second or 2 seconds, that call is picked over there, even if it dropped, they charge you for a minute. Basic competition in the industry today have brought down the price. And we're hoping that the more competition we have in the industry, the better the prices. So I think it's work in progress.
All right, Sam Yohanna, thank you so much. At this point, let's go on a quick break. When we return, we'll be looking at it from a holistic perspective, particularly the input of the labor in all of this. Where many Nigerians are asking, or some Nigerians are actually asking and saying, if at all you will talk about a protest. Telecoms is just a pinch. There are more pressing issues that should be spoken about. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on New Central Television, and I still have my guest with me, Sam Yohanna, former organizing secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Kaduna State, and also Dr. Niyi Akinsiju is the chairman of the Independent Media and Policy Initiative, also joining virtually from Abuja. We are discussing the telecom tariff hike and, of course, the face-off with the NLC, where the NLC has said it will rest its protest until the panel put together by the government, comes up with its resolutions. Well, gentlemen, thank you for staying with me.
Thank you.
All right, now let's look at it from the angle of labor right now, where some Nigerians are actually saying, you know what, this is a step in the right direction. Labor speaking on behalf of Nigerians and saying that, look, 50% is too much, while there are some others that are saying there are more pressing issues and that telecommunication is just maybe one of the several issues. There's the hike in food, there's hike in accommodation, there's hike in transportation. Labor really hasn't done much in those areas, and that telecommunication is more or less, going out for a protest on that is not really substantial. I would like to know your take on this, Dr. Niyi.
Thank you very much. Of course, first, I think labor is in the right attitude by determining to conduct a protest over possible increase in the rates of telecommunications service. And I say this because what labor has told us publicly is that they were going to protest, this hike of these service providers. To a large extent, a consumer, if a consumer is dissatisfied with the pricing of a service provider, such consumer as a group, as a body, can picket, that the offices or the manufacturing plants of the service provider, as it were. I don't have any problem with that. It's the right of the consumer, and I think at this level, labor is saying it's acting, for and on behalf of consumers in Nigeria. But the truth of the matter for me is that labor does not have a right, to hamstring the Nigerian Federation, the Nigerian government, to compare, to force it or to pressure it to intervene in a basically economic decision, by the service providers. So you can picket, you can protest, but the issue, I am not happy that the federal government intervened. The only thing I can appreciate about that intervention is that the federal government has shown how responsible it is and how it empathizes with Nigerians, as it were. But when you look at it principally from an economic point of view, the intervention of the federal government may not be necessary. Because in truth, if the service providers are determined to increase the price of their services as a result of high-cost inputs, the only option would be to either, of course, reduce the quality of services as it may be, and going forward, they run an unsustainable business paradigm or model, and of course, eventually, we have the roll-up of the crashing of that business.
Dr. Akinsiju, what you are saying is that if I'm to get you correctly, you said you're not comfortable with the fact that the federal government
that belongs to the.
What you're saying is that you're not comfortable with the fact that the federal government is involved in all of this.
As far as I'm concerned, it's purely an economic decision that is supposed to be made by the service providers. Now, to the extent that we have the NCC, which is, of course, mandated to oversight that industry, and it's the NCC that have been mediating, on behalf of Nigeria as the body, the agency that has a strong understanding of that industry.
Dr. Niyi Akinsiju, if you can hear me, we are having a bit of connectivity issues with you, or connection issues. We are not able to hear you properly. The line keeps breaking. So I might just need to come back to you and go to Sam Yohanna on this one. Now, Sam, Doctor said that the government might just be going out of line, interfering in a market that is very, very privatized. Do you think that the government is going out of line? Should the government even, in any way have a stake or have a say in all of this conversation? Given the fact that we know that communication is pretty much pivotal to many Nigerians, is a basic essential.
Legal should have been more concerned about engaging the government with issues that have to do with welfare of Nigerian citizens. What Labour I see them doing now is like dropping the cart before the horse. Does communication
also constitute welfare of citizens?
Say again?
Does communication, doesn't it also fall within that category of, basic welfare of an average Nigerian?
It does, but like I said Labour would have been more concerned with issues that have to do with basic welfare of Nigerians. Mr. Dapo, we are all aware of the excruciating pains Nigeria are going through, either as a result of increase in the price of energy, or increase in the price of foodstuff, increase in the price of hospital bills, increase in the price of school fees. So, like Mr. Dr. Akinsiju said, that he would have expected government to have a little bit drawback in this negotiation. But NCC, as a regulatory body of the telecom sector in Nigeria, are there to see that quality of service is improved, Nigerians are not shortchanged as a result of service rendered to them, which is not out of place. But like I said earlier, this industry, if care is not taken, I tell you, we might wake up one morning and find out that the industry has gone down. The reason because a lot of the telecom industries are owing banks as a result of facilities they've collected from the banks. And the banks, once the duration for paying back these facilities is due, they will be on their neck. And I think NCC, what they don't want is let the telecom industry not transfer the burden of serving some of those facilities to the customers. In as much as we all know that these tariffs are structured, and I don't know how the tariff plan has been structured by the NCC, because I have an idea how the tariff plan has been structured in the power sector, whereby every two years there is a review in the electricity tariff plan until where it gets to a stage where it is like that's the peak, then it will now start coming down. So I don't know if it is like that, if it is how it is structured in the telecom industry. But like I said earlier, the telecom industry is bleeding in Nigeria. And if nothing is done urgently, honestly, we might wake up one morning and find out that service is not there anymore. And we can't go back to the dark ages. We all know what we went through in those days in respect to telecommunication services and internet services. So I think it's not out of place for NCC to come in as a result of the increase in tariff to see how it is negotiated. And even this 50% we are talking, I'm sure by the time the exchange rate of the Naira improves, the Naira appreciates over the dollar, I see the tariff coming down as well. Because like I said earlier, most of these equipment are imported, and they need serious foreign exchange to bring in this equipment. I remember 2-3 years ago when there was a problem with the submarine cable under the sea, where it took months before that cable was fixed. And it was capital intensive to get experts from overseas to go under the sea and fix this submarine optic fiber cable. So all this, we're talking about capital intensive projects. So please, let Labour see how they can approach this review in tariff with a human face. Besides, a lot of Labour union members are working with the telecom industries. So it's an industry that Labour also has tremendous, their members working in that sector. And tomorrow they wouldn't want some of these members being rendered unemployed if this telecom industry companies go down.
All right. Let me go back to Dr. Akinsiju. If you can hear me, sir. The government has actually said that a panel should be set up, to sort of review this tariff. In a way, it has representative from Labour and even from the part of the government. And I also would like to believe also members, stakeholders within that particular industry. Even though I know that you feel that the government shouldn't even have a stake in all of this, do you have expectations from this panel?
Well, I think the whole idea of setting up that the panel, it's simply political. I cannot see any economic reason behind it, because the truth of the matter is the industry, is it ripe enough for a possible hike? An industry, and that we know, I mean, given the Nigerian environment, since 2013, from my readings, there had not been any form of substantial hike in the rates or the cost or the price of services delivered to Nigerians. And I'm saying this sincerely because it's not about just being the consumer. It is about the provider. And we need to empathize with what the operators in that sector have been going through. I know, every Nigerian knows that between 2013 and now, there had been increase in what do you call it? In the prices of in the cost of fuel, and the cost of electricity, in minimum wage, in the cost of interest rates, banks' interest rates. So in these many years, there have been various layers of increased cost, and of course, this is also an industry that uses virtually all possible energy inputs, personnel inputs, capital equipment inputs, and all that. And I can't imagine that in Nigeria, you actually have an industry that will become stagnant in terms of cost decision, over a period of 10 years, a decade. without even any effort, to align with new realities. First, because this is what has been recorded. What we need to actually do is to first commend the SEC that is oversighting this industry, because it means to a large extent the NCC has been mediating favorably on behalf of Nigerians, and had found a way of relating with operators in that sector in a way that they also understand the possible limitations, of the possible economic limitations of Nigerians. So while we commend them, I will commend them. The reality of the matter is also that we don't want to have operators, and I'll mention them now because I use Niyi Mobile, and I know when I started with Niyi Mobile as Etisalat, it was delivering on the promises of the brand, as it were, to me. But over the last few months, I've seen a general decline in the quality of service of Niyi Mobile. And I made my
maybe you might not just maybe you might just do without the names.
What I found out,
okay,
I've been challenges with that brand. So to a large extent, what is important is that when an entity that is a private sector entity, and my reference is that these people bought licenses, purchased operating licenses from the Nigerian people through the Nigerian government, and they paid for it. And the Nigerian government, the Nigerian people are not invested in any way in the establishment of their operations. So as far as I'm concerned, these are entities that are purely commercial entities. So they have a reason. The circumstances are clear to show that they have a reason to increase this, to increase the rate at which they deliver services to the Nigerian people. We should just understand this.
Dr. Niyi Akinsiju, thank you so much for that. But we'll go on another break. When we definitely return, we'll definitely pick up and look at this issue also from the prism of Nigerians themselves and stakeholders within that sector. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Of course, it's still Politics HQ on New Central Television. And we are looking at the recent telecom tariff hike, where, of course, the NLC and Nigerians have started reacting. The NLC has suspended its proposed protest, saying that, of course, it will wait for the report of the panel set up by the federal government. Now, joining the conversation to shed more light on this is Okonu Abdullahi, is the General Secretary of the Private Telecommunications and Communications Senior Staff Association of Nigeria. He joins virtually from Lagos. Thank you for your time, Mr. Okonu. Let me ask you straight up. You are a stakeholder, in that industry. How does this protest affect you and members of your association?
Okay, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear you clearly. It was the network was a bit bad when you were trying to ask me a question, so I couldn't hear what the
okay, let me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so my question to you is this. You as stakeholders, in the sector, that's the telecommunications sector, how does this protest impact on you? And what is your take on the fact that Nigerians are saying 50% is too much for their pockets?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Dapo. It is understandable, actually, if Nigerians are complaining about the hike, 50%, as you said, that they are complaining that it is too much. It is understandable because of what we are going through in the country presently, the economic hardship that we are experiencing presently. Definitely, if the tariff hike takes place also, it will also add to their burden. So it is understandable that Nigerians will complain. But the reality on ground stipulates that, shows that there is no alternative to what we are discussing other than for us to agree that there should be an tariff increase. You know, before you brought me on, I listened keenly to your guest, and I think they have done justice, a great justice to the discussion. It is unavoidable. It is just inevitable, except, like one of your guests mentioned earlier, except you want to go back to the dark ages. You understand? That is when we will say the tariff hike should not go ahead, should not take place, because all the resources that are needed for the survival or for the maintenance of telecommunication services in Nigeria, their prices have gone up. You talk of fuel, you talk of electricity, even the floating of the naira, the devaluation of the naira also have had serious negative impact on the sector. You understand? And like your guest rightly said also, when was the last time an increase took place in the sector? That is, if I'm not mistaken, that is 2013. That's precisely about 12 years ago. You understand? So as a trade unionist, in the sector, yes, we feel the pain, the burden, the increase we have on Nigerians, but Nigerians need to understand that it is either we allow the increase to take place or the sector collapses. And don't forget that if the telecommunication sector collapses, it will not go down on its own. It will go down with other sectors as well. Banking sector will be impacted. Even our security will also be impacted. You understand? So the only way out, if I may want to add, is that the prices of all those resources or all those factors I just made mention of should come down. Talking about electricity tariff, if it goes down, our naira becomes valuable. Then apart from that also, fuel also, the price will go down. If all these go down, then we will not have any justification whatsoever to ask for the hike in tariff. As it is today, though it may be, the truth may be bitter, people may be struggling to hear the truth, considering the economic hardship that they are undergoing, that they are experiencing presently. But like I said earlier, there is no two ways to it. This tariff increase must take place for the survival of the sector.
All right. Let me leave you for a moment and go to Sam Yohanna. Sam, I'd like your take on the idea of the panel set up to look into this matter. Do you have expectations?
That they should do the needful and let them be fair to both the customers and the service providers. You see, Mr. Dako, if we remember, this issue of this tariff increment has been ongoing even during the time when Professor Ali Pantami was the Minister of Communication and Professor Dambata was the Executive Chairman NCC. It has become obvious that the increment in the tariff is necessary. Necessary in the sense that if this increment is not implemented, I tell you, we will be left with poor quality of service. You can even see now, even with the increment in the tariff now, you can see how the internet connection has been unstable, on and off. So I would be delighted if the committee set up by the federal government carry out its assignment within the shortest possible time, and let's get over this issue of tariff increment or tariff being reduced, so that we can make progress. There's so many things to do. There's so many to do. Like Mr. Okonu said, if the telecom industry goes down, I tell you, the financial sector will go down as well. Our national security will be exposed. So many things. So it is our wish that the committee set up by the government will do the needful and in the interest of the customers and the interest of the service providers. But this is what I have to add.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Akinsiju. I mean, we just pressed for time. We have just a few minutes left. Let me just take your final thoughts on this matter and what maybe you project in the coming weeks.
I really believe that this will be resolved. I think that going forward, the federal government is serious about this intervention. And I want to believe that the benefit of the doubt will be on the side of the regulator, NCC. I want to believe again that the NLC will reason, along the line of operators. But the most important thing for those of us that we describe ourselves as consumer, I am principally a consumer of telecommunication products and services. But I realize that, of course, the average consumer wants prices at the lowest possible, level or threshold, as the case may be. But I'm also realistic that we are in what you call a free market-driven economy. And that this industry, the telecommunication industry, is situated in that context or within that economy, as it were. And therefore, to a large extent, we must allow the forces of demand and supply, to determine the price, as it were. And supply in this case is determined by, of course, the cost input, which is driven mainly again by pricing. If the price is not right, there will be deficit or deficiency in investment. And when there's deficiency in investment, at the end of the day, all the things you have been enjoying in terms of telecommunication data, driven by, data that help us to book our airlines, our flight schedule, to book our boats, and I'm trying to be basic here, our boats, and the other forms of services provided for transportation that enables agriculture, enables interconnectivity between agriculture and, of course, technology, and so on and so on. The reality is that if we determine the way to politicize all this and make it a populist thing, we will end up shortchanging ourselves. And of course, abbreviating the developments that we are seeing in that sector, that had become a major driver of the service sector, which is also the largest, contributor to the Nigerian GDP, as it were. So my thinking is, people will be practical, we will be practical, and of course, be reasonable in the way we handle and manage this situation. All
right, we'll go on a quick break, and once we return, we'll just take the final thoughts in 30 seconds of that of Sam and also Mr. Okonu. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ, and of course, we just have a few minutes left. I would like to invite Mr. Okonu, your final thoughts on this matter before we wrap it up. 30 seconds.
Oh, thank you so much. I would just want to implore Nigerians and the panel or the committee that was set up not to get carried away with emotions. They should look at it critically, devoid of any form of sentiment. Though we all appreciate the fact that yes, it's going to add to the burden, considering the economic hardship that we are presently facing. So, but the reality on ground shows that there is no other way for us to go other than to allow this increment to take place, not only for the survival of the workers there, but for the survival of the Nigerian economy also. So it is important for us to embrace this increase. Thank you.
All right. I would have loved to hear from Sam, but Sam, I'm afraid this is what time will permit. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the show today. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
All right. And of course, this is where we drop the curtains on today's episode. In case you missed out, you can catch up on our YouTube platform. That's at News Central TV. You can also choose to follow us on social media. The same handle. It's on your screen there. You can choose to follow me personally at Dakpo, at Digboye. Until I come your way tomorrow, good night.